What's up, YouTube? Paradox Rift is around the corner, and we've been playing for a little bit right now already, and LAIC is coming up, our first official tournament where we will be playing with Paradox Rift cards. So I was going to look into a metagame preview and breakdown of what decks are performing, what's happening, what you guys should expect heading into the Paradox Rift format. We're going to have LAIC followed by Brisbane Regionals, I believe, and Gdansk Regionals on the same weekend. And then a couple of weeks till come stateside where we play in San Antonio. So you guys can be playing cups, everything from home. What should you be expecting for the first weekend of Paradox Rift? Well, I'm going to be using this account, IGPTCG, on Twitter. Shout out to them for their stats and coverage, because this kind of summarizes exactly what I want to talk about, how I want to talk about it, and why data is so important when you're prepping for the future. If you guys like this kind of content, please go support them on Twitter. That's the most important thing, first and foremost. And then after that, please come and subscribe to me and like the channel. So let's jump into it. So IG here looks at only the tournaments that have more than 64 players, which I think is a good sample size. Anything smaller than 64, you kind of get these weird numbers here and there. So what is happening in the first week? Well, we see that Roaring Moon is the most played deck by a large margin, and Chien-Pao coming in second, Charizard third, Goldengo fourth, Giratina Lost Box. Gardevoir still not dead like people are saying it is. Miraidon Flaffy is coming in here. Snorlax stall is the most notable piece of the pie that people are not talking about. However, I will get to my stall thoughts when we get there, so please stay tuned for that. I did tweet about it already, so you guys can check that out. And then when you go to the top cut representation, so like top 8s onwards, you see decks like Gardevoir, Lost Zone Box making more of a splash, as well as Snorlax stall performing a lot better. Chien-Pao falling towards the wayside a little bit more. We can see that Lost Box's numbers have been the lowest they have been since the card has been released. Roaring Moon living up to its hype and still putting in 15% into top 8 pretty consistently. We can see that more skilled players are probably playing things like Gardevoir and Giratina Lost Zone Box to kind of flex their skill a little bit. So you're seeing those decks in particular rise to the top. Charizard still making quite an impact with how powerful the card itself is, and then Snorlax still obviously a little bit of a cheeky card. So we see Roaring Moon here. These win rate percentages are very, very, very important for you guys to observe, I think, because it shows what decks you're good against, what decks you're not good against. In theory, Roaring Moon, you can see, is not a winning deck, but consistently places in the top 8 of most majors. The deck is very, very, very strong, in my opinion. It is probably the deck to beat in this format. You can see it has a positive win rate in Chien-Pao, Miraidon, and Goldengo. Slightly lower into Fusion Mew. I think you should be favored into Fusion Mew, honestly. Charizard, you're slightly unfavored, which I think is correct. Giratina Lost Box, you're slightly unfavored. I think that's correct. Lost Zone Box, also slightly unfavored, correct. Gardevoir, yep, everything checks out to me. We see Chien-Pao losing a lot more than before with a 42.9% win rate. This could be attributed to best of one, a little bit of breaking, a little bit of players not knowing exactly what they're doing, a little bit of bad beats, all that good stuff. But you can see across the board, this Chien-Pao deck has been losing, and losing, even with the addition of Iron Hands, which proves, is Iron Hands actually that good for the deck, or is maybe going back to what used to work? We can see Charizard has a pretty insane conversion rate once it makes it into the top 8, because most decks in the format have a really, really difficult time setting up two Charizard. Like once they step to Charizard EXs, you have a really difficult time beating through these two big attackers, and that can kind of just carry the game. So I think Charizard is in a very good spot in this format. Goldengo is a deck that seems like a lot of fun, but it's a little bit short of winning any major here in these online tournaments. But it is placed a couple times in the top 32, a little bit in the top 8s. But I think Goldengo obviously has a lot of very close matchups or decks where you just need to draw. It's like kind of like Chien-Pao, but a little bit less. Need all your pieces. But the problem is Chien-Pao can find your energies for you versus Goldengo just does coin bonus, and you're just kind of trying to high roll into these cards. Giratina is absolutely dominating the online ladder. Giratina, I think, on paper has the most favorable matchups in this format. Path, Roxanne, Countercatcher is an incredibly strong combo. Path Iono Countercatcher is an incredibly strong combo, especially because you can pretty much pick off any draw engine with Sableye or start Greninjaing. And you also have Star Requiem and Lost Impact to just close out the game. So you can make quite a bit of 6-1 prize comebacks. Now, that being said, I'm not entirely sold on Giratina in general as a deck, because I don't like Comfy. I'm a hater, you guys know. But I think you can't argue with it. Gardevoir has been absolutely smashing it, even though people are saying that it is dead, beating even the most popular decks like Roaring Moon and Charizard. Goldango also is a favorable matchup, but it does lose to things like Snorlax Stall, Giratina Lost Box, Miraidon, but you still see that its death is greatly exaggerated. Screamtail making its way into quite a bit of lists. Luxurious Cape as a fun tech card, I guess. Decks foregoing the Cresselia as well as the Zacian, just opting to just say we'll countercatcher our way to victory more so than not. This Avery list is very cool because you don't want to research a lot anymore. You just want to build that hand and start playing from there. Miraidon losing a lot more than previously anticipated. I think Miraidon is still very strong, but you do get a bad matchup at Roaring Moon, in my opinion. It's very, very close, but it is not a good matchup per se. Giratina coming back into the format is not good for Miraidon either because it puts Miraidon at one worst matchup, as well as Charizard being one of your absolute worst matchups. Lost Zone Box has been losing, and losing. I'm sure that's music to so many people's ears that this Sableye guy is not winning games. I think every deck is a little bit beefier, a little bit bigger, and it just makes winning those games that you were already winning on short margins a lot harder. Charizard is a lot harder to beat, always has been. Gardevoir is still a difficult deck, especially with Screamtail being able to snipe some stuff. Roaring Moon is just so bulky with those 290 HP Pokemon, effectively. Giratina is a close matchup. I think Turbo should be favored, but I think it's going both ways a little bit. Chien-Pao should be a favored matchup as well, but if they are playing hands and get the combo off by turn 2 pretty often, then you are in a dangerous spot. And then Fusion Me, I think, was always a little bit unfavored for Lost Box, and then Miraidon, I think, is your best matchup for sure. We see Block Lax coming in with an incredible win rate and an incredible conversion rate, showing favorables across the board to every single deck here. But my thoughts on Stall is that Fusion or Stall decks in general will perform better in a best of one, especially with open deck lists when you can see what your opponent has tech-wise, and you can kind of basically be like, okay, I need to play around this card, I need to play around this card, I know exactly that they only have 2 switch cards maybe in their deck. Maybe it's like a Roaring Moon that only plays 2 switch cards and no cross switchers. You know exactly how to play around that. If you know that a Roaring Moon does play cross switchers, you can play around that. However, in a best of 3 scenario, you can't play around every single out. You can't play around these phantoms that exist. You have to just commit to a bit and go for it, and maybe you commit wrong. And if you commit wrong, you lose game 1. If you lose game 1, you're not winning this series. It's as simple as that. And that's why playing a Stall deck at a best of 3 tournament is so unbelievably difficult. And if you do end up playing Stall, if you are expecting Stall, maybe play a couple reps against it, just get some practice in. But it is a deck that you'll probably see one time in 15 rounds if you're unlucky. But I don't think you end up seeing Stall enough to make a difference in your tournament run. But if I guess you want to be a Stall player, maybe you can put some time in and master this this deck played by Sky. They played a lot of really cool cards: Defiance Vest, Digiacomo, the Radiant Serena, the Mimikyu, a lot of really cool cards coming in to play here. Interesting deck in general. Fusion Mew is still up at top. Like, you think Fusion Mew is dead. Every time you think Mew is dead, it comes back better than ever, and you're always just like, man, when is Mew going to die? Well, I bring you great news that rotation is coming up in a couple of months, so don't worry about it. Mew only has a few months left to live, and then we're going to say goodbye. We'll send it off just like we did the Going Merry. So that being said, Mew is still doing very, very well. I think that this translates a little bit better because Mew is a very good best of 1 deck, but I think that come tournament day, people will tech a little bit higher for it, harder for it. Maybe Drapions, maybe play their own Spirit Tombs, make it a little bit tougher. This Fusion Mew list, played by Chalo, has won 2 big tournaments, one with 334 players, with 185 players. So there's a lot of merit to be said about this specific 60-card list. If you're going to start somewhere, this is the best place to start. That being said, I think you should expect these exact same roughly meta percentage shares heading into LAIC. I would probably put Charizard higher than Chien-Pao. I'd put Giratina higher than Goldango. Miraidon higher a little bit too. I think Gardevoir is played for sure. I think Mew is played for sure. And I think the biggest decks to beat are going to be Roaring Moon and Charizard as you go into this metagame. Chien-Pao will still be very prevalent, but besides that, I think that is how your overall metagame is going to look going into the first weekend. Should be a lot of excitement for everyone watching at home. Let me know what you guys think is going to happen, what deck that you would personally be playing or what you're enjoying right now. And yeah, I'm excited to see how LASC shakes out, and it should be a lot of fun. So thank you guys so much for watching, and peace out.